The probe came in sideways, which meant it was damaged, which meant my evening had just gotten complicated. I was the only person on Cala 7. That was the job, one technician, one decommissioned atmospheric relay platform hanging above the ammonia bands of Seraph 4, watching instruments that mostly watched themselves. The platform had been stripped of everything useful. What remained were the passive arrays, the cold storage bays for incoming sample probes, and me. Supply drone came once every 40 days. The next one was still 31 days out. The probe hit the catch cradle at a wrong angle and I had to suit up to drag it the rest of the way in manually. By the time I got the bay sealed and the outer door locked, my hands were cold enough to ache even through the gloves. I cycled the airlock, pulled the helmet, and walked over to look at it. The probe casing was from a Verify survey series. I recognized the shell geometry. Old design. Long range. Whatever it had been carrying it a long time. The casing was warm. Not instrument warm. Not solar heat retention warm. Warm the way something warm-blooded is warm, through insulation, through effort, through the business of being alive. I put my bare hand flat against the hull and held it there and the warmth pressed back. I got the casing open with the manual release. It took 4 minutes and I did not hurry. Whatever was inside had survived transit. I did not want to be the thing that ended that. She was curled in the sample cavity the way small things curl when the world has gotten very large around them. Her skin held a faint luminescence, not a glow exactly, more the way certain minerals catch light and release it slowly, as if the light belonged to them. Her ears came to soft points. Her eyes, when they opened, were the color of deep water with something moving underneath. She looked at me the way a child looks at a stranger, not with fear, not with welcome, with the careful measuring look of someone deciding. I did not move. I stayed crouched beside the open casing and let her measure. After a while she reached out and laid 2 fingers against the back of my wrist. Not grasping. Just contact. Just checking that I was real. "All right," I said. "All right." I did not know what she was. I did not know where the probe had come from or how she had gotten inside it or how long she had been traveling. What I knew was that the temperature in the bay was already falling. Cala 7's heating systems were decommissioned down to minimum viable, and minimum viable meant barely above freezing in the outer bays, and whatever she was, she had been warm inside that probe for a reason. I carried her to the cold storage bay. It was the only space on the platform that still had regulated temperature control, because the sample probes required it, because my orders required the samples to be kept within spec. The bay held steady at 4 degrees above the probe's operational baseline, cool by human standards, but consistent. Controlled. The kind of cold that doesn't deepen. I set her down on the equipment shelf and went to find a thermal blanket, and when I came back she had not moved except to watch the door I had left through. Watching for me to come back. I wrapped the blanket around her and she accepted it with that same careful measuring look, and I sat down on the deck beside her and tried to figure out what I was going to do. The platform's communication array was stripped. I had an emergency beacon, 1 use, 1 narrowband pulse to the nearest relay, response time approximately 6 days minimum. I had the instrument logs, which would transmit automatically in 22 hours on the next scheduled burst window. 22 hours was a long time. 6 days was longer. I had, according to the platform's atmospheric transit model, a low particulate exit window at 0600 the next morning. 14 hours from now. The window was 47 minutes wide. It was the kind of window a probe used to make a clean atmospheric insertion, or a clean departure. I did not know if that meant anything. I sat with her in the cold storage bay and watched the instruments and thought about it, and somewhere in the 2nd hour she shifted and laid her head against my arm and went to sleep, and I stopped thinking about it and just kept watch. The power grid gave me trouble around 0200. The platform's main bus had been running on marginal cells for 3 years and nobody had replaced them because the platform was decommissioned and I was not a power systems engineer, I was an instrument tech. And the difference matters at 2 in the morning when the cold storage bay's temperature readout starts climbing. 1 degree. Then 2. I went through every manual I had downloaded to the local terminal. I found a load shedding sequence that was meant for emergency situations, which this was, and I ran it, cutting everything non-essential: the observation lounge, the secondary comms rack, the running lights, the galley heating, and routed every remaining cell into the cold storage bus. The temperature stabilized. It took 40 minutes and she slept through all of it, and when I came back in from the junction panel my hands were shaking and I did not entirely know why. I sat back down. She stirred, found my arm again, settled. "I've got you," I said, which was what you say when you are the only warm thing in a cold room and a small one has decided to trust you. "I've got you until 0600. I meant it as information. I meant, the window opens at 0600 and I think that's when you need to leave, and I will keep this room cold enough and this platform running until that moment because that is the one thing I can actually do. I am not a doctor. I am not a diplomat. I cannot call anyone in time to matter. I am a man with a load-shedding sequence and a thermal blanket and 14 hours, and I will spend all of them." She slept. I watched the temperature readout. Sometime around 0430 she woke and sat up and looked at the bulkhead for a long time, the way you look at something you have decided about, and then she looked at me. I said, "It's almost time." I had no idea if she understood. She looked at me the way the measuring look had shifted over the hours into something else, not knowledge, not language, but recognition. The kind where you have been close to something long enough that some of it has moved through you. I walked her to the outer bay. I had the airlock prepped. I didn't know if she needed it, I didn't know what she breathed, what the vacuum did to her, any of it, but I opened the outer door anyway because the window was at 0600 and it was 0558 and what she needed was an open door. She stopped at the threshold. I knelt down to her eye level. The cold was coming in hard through the open bay and I could already feel it, but I stayed where I was. She looked at me one more time and then she reached up and pressed her palm flat against my cheek, just for a moment, the same two-fingered contact as the first time except open-handed now, and warmer than anything on that platform had any right to be. Then she stepped out. She did not fall. She moved the way light moves when it finds a surface to cross, purposeful, without effort, as if the space between things is simply not an obstacle. The ammonia bands of Seraph 4 spread beneath her, amber and rust and old gold in the pre-dawn light of a distant sun, and she crossed toward them and disappeared into them. And the platform's instruments registered a transit anomaly for 11 seconds and then nothing. I closed the outer bay door. I sat down on the deck of the empty cold storage bay and did not move for a long time. When I finally stood up and went to the terminal to log the night, I sat at the keyboard and could not find a category for any of it. There is no field in an instrument text log for this. I typed the temperature readings. I typed the load-shedding sequence I had run. I typed, probe CF7 arrived damaged 2,147 hours, anomalous contents, contents departed via Bay 2 outer door 0601 hours, no further data. I saved the log and made coffee in the cold galley and stood at the one porthole that faced the gas giant's face and looked at the clouds moving in their slow, enormous currents and thought about what it costs to keep a promise to something that never asked you to make one. Not much, it turned out. Just a night. Just everything you had. I thought that was a fair trade.